In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to host your remoted components in Internet Information Services. One of the great things about remoting is that you have some options about where you want to deploy your remoted components to. You can host your remoted components in IIS, you can host them in a Windows service, you can host them in Com Plus services, you can host them in a console window, a WinForms application, and there might be some other options that I'm forgetting. So you have a lot of choices on where to deploy or how to deploy your remoted components. And each one of them have their strengths and weaknesses. And so as we go through each one of those options, we'll talk about what its particular strength is. But so as to not bore you with some of the beginning information, let's go ahead and talk about the project and then show how to set up Internet Information Services so that it can host our new remoted component. Now, what I've got in this solution, IIS Remoting Hosting, are simply two projects. One is a class library called Business Object. This looks identical to what we've been doing up to this point as we've looked at the Marshall by value and Marshall by reference examples. Practically identical. I haven't changed anything about it. It still has the get message function. It still has the same constructors and so on. And then I have my client application, which is simply a console application, and it looks identical to what we've been using in the past few videos. I haven't changed anything about it except I got rid of all of the comments up to this point. And we won't need to make any changes in order to use it for Internet Information Services, with one exception. We have to change the location of the client's URL, the URL that actually should be named the server URL, the URL where it's looking for our remoted component. Before we change this information, what we'll do is open up Internet Information Services, and I've already created a folder in inetpub www root called IIS Remoting Hosting. And so the first thing I want to do is make that a virtual directory. I'll find my default website, and then I'm going to right-click default website and select New Virtual Directory. The wizard appears. I'm going to click Next and type in my alias, which will be IIS Remoting Hosting. Click the Next button. I'll find the directory where I want to put this. It happens to be on my C, inetpub, www root, IIS Remoting Hosting. I'll leave the access permissions alone, and I'll click Finish to continue. And I'm not going to change anything about it. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it the way it is. Let me open up Windows Explorer and take a look at this directory. There's nothing in it right now, but what I'm going to have to do is get it ready so that it can accept our .NET assembly, and so I'll need to create a bin directory. And this is an important step. If you forget this, the application won't work correctly. Now that I know what my URL is going to be, I'm going to change this, the current URL that I have. And the first change I'm going to make is to HTTP instead of TCP. And this is one of the first reasons why you might want to use IIS to host your remote component as opposed to some other form, is because you want to take advantage of HTTP. In fact, you can't use TCP. So if you're looking to take advantage of the TCP, then you're not going to be able to use IIS. Also, we'll get rid of the port number because it'll automatically be port 80. And then we'll change this to the name of our virtual directory that we just created, IIS Remoting Hosting, and then the name of our remoting service. Now we can name this whatever we want to, and I'll show you we'll have to define the same name in just a moment in a web.config that we're going to add. So I'm going to leave it as just customer.rem. One thing that's important, if you use IIS, you have to name the service with a .soap or .rem extension or it won't work. So I chose the rem for remoting. And that's the only change you'll have to make. And let me go ahead and build the solution. The next thing that I want to do is create a web.config. And I've taken the liberty of going ahead and doing this already because there's a fair bit of typing. But ultimately what we want to do is set whether we're going to use single call or singleton, and then we'll have to give it some type information. And the type will include the name, namespace, dot, class name that we're going to remote, and then we have to give it the name of the assembly, which in this case will be businessobject.dll. And then finally, we'll give it the object URI, and this is where our customer.rem will come into play. And we'll define this as the location for the service that is contained here in the type. So notice that this is a much smaller web.config than you might be used to if you've looked through the ASP.NET videos that we've created in the past. It's pretty simplified. All we're doing is just creating a well-known service and setting some properties. Now this will come back into play in just a moment because I'm going to show you how changing it from single call to singleton is all done here. And let's go ahead and make sure we're saving it in the right spot. Okay. Now notice that I did not have to create a host application. Where's the host? Where's all the code where we defined all this information and had a little console window up? Well, the truth of the matter is you don't need that. IIS is the surrogate for the object, the business object, that we'll be passing then to the client. So this is all we need to do. Finally, I'm going to need to go to where my project is at. So my IIS remoting hosting, which has my solution and my client files and my business object files, and find where it's compiled to. So I'm just going to copy this businessobject.dll, and then I'm going to open up another instance of the Windows Explorer. And you can see this is where my IIS remoting hosting is at. And in the bin directory, I'm going to paste in the business object that I just compiled. So now I have my web.config, and in my bin directory, my business object. Now what I want to do is actually run my client. So I'm going to make sure in my solution that my client is set as the single startup project. And I'm going to stay in debug mode and click run. And we'll get a console window that'll come up, and you will have remembered this little application from previous examples we've created. And I'm just going to type in Bob. And it says, hi, you're the first person in line. Hit any key to quit. Okay, so now let's run the application a second time. And it says you're the second person in line. There's one person ahead of you. So this worked exactly the way that we anticipated for a singleton. Now just for kicks, let's bring our web.config back up and change singleton to single call. And we'll want to make sure that's capitalized there. Single call. Great. That's the only thing we'll change. Now let's run the application again. Okay, so first person in line. And we'll run it a second time. And it says that Steve's the first person in line. Well, what gives? Well, that's because we have put our remoted object into a single call mode so that each successive request gets a new instance of our business object. In singleton mode, it will use one object to serve up all the requests so that it can keep state between web requests. So in conclusion, let's talk about why you would want to host in IIS. Did you notice how easy it was? This was so simple. It was easy to deploy. All I had to do was create a new virtual directory in Internet Information Services. It was easy to configure. All I had to do was create a web config with one entry in it, and I could change it from single call to singleton without having to recompile. All I had to do was just save my changes to the web config, and it automatically did it. There's no server code at all that I have to worry about. I don't have to create and manage and then maintain all the code to do a Windows service or this or that. Uh, a Windows form or a console application. Didn't have to worry about any of that. Didn't have to worry about debugging the application from a server perspective. And then also, I get to use port 80. So that means, although I haven't demoed it here, that I could potentially put this through a firewall, just like SOAP web services, ASP.NET web services rather. And probably most importantly, since I'm using IIS, that means I can take advantage of IIS authentication. I can use secure sockets layer. I can also take advantage of load balancing, so I could spread this using F5 or NLB or CLB in order to distribute the requests to my remoted objects amongst many different servers instead of just one. So there's a lot of advantages to using IIS. Some of the disadvantages, I can't use TCP, so if I was going to do some real heavy encryption or something along those lines, I wouldn't be able to. But I am able to use SOAP, which is more verbose and it's easier to debug. So there's trade-offs there. But in most cases, I'm going to recommend that IIS is probably the way to go. It's the easiest way to get started, and until you can spend some time and actually do some performance testing on why you shouldn't use IIS to host your components, then I think that this makes a lot of sense. But we'll talk about the other hosting methods as well, like ComPlus and creating Windows Service in order to host your remote components in the future videos. So I hope this was helpful. And now you know enough to create distributed applications that reside on physically different machines. And it was easy as just creating a couple of settings in IIS and a web config. Thank you.